Okay, good morning, and how are we doing today? Today we are coming to the multi-dimensional arrays, but before then we want just to give a quick recap of what we have learned before. We have learned about one-dimensional arrays, and I believe by now we understand what an array is. It's just a variable that is capable of storing more than one values. Okay. In our single dimensional array class, we have seen that we can store many values in a variable that is that has only one row and multiple columns. Okay, and of course we know the intersection of rows and columns, that is where we store our values. Now if we increase the number of rows, then that becomes a multi-dimensional array, and that is what we are looking at today. To start with, we are going to look at a two-dimensional array. So a two-dimensional array is a type of array that has two rows and multiple columns. Okay, two rows and many columns. So, and in that we basically do exactly the same. Everything remains the same, like we had last week in our in one-dimensional array, except that now we increase our rows, and the syntax of declaration is as simple as this. So you basically have to indicate data type like we did last week, and then you have now those square brackets. Now they have to be two because now we are dealing with two rows. Okay, two dimension. In our previous lesson, we saw that we only indicated the one set of brackets, square brackets, after which we indicated the name, followed by equal sign, then new, the word new, and then data type. Then we indicated the size of the array, okay, how many columns it had. But now we have to indicate how many rows and how many columns, so in those square brackets. So that's basically the syntax of how to declare a two-dimensional array or multi-dimensional array. Example, you can say int if your array is going to store integers. Int, then followed by the two set of square brackets, then followed by the name of an array. In this case we are calling it ARR, okay, standing for array, equals to new int 10 20. That means we have now 10 rows and 20 columns. So the first one is always the rows and the last one is column numbers. Okay, that will be an example of a multi-dimensional array, how to declare a multi-dimensional array. All right, and like that we are ready to use that particular array. Suppose now we want to store values in that array. Look at this following example here. So you simply indicate the name of the array followed by the coordinates of the cell that we want, or at which we want to store a value. Like in this case, we want to store in a value in our first cell. So we'll then say R, that's ARR, the name of the array, and then in the square brackets we put 0 0. So it's a row 0, column 0. That is the coordinates of the first cell in our array, the cell in the first row, first column in that array. So and then we say equal to 1. That means we are storing 1 in that particular position, in that particular cell. So that's where we are storing 1, and we can go on and on like that. A01, that will be the second cell in the first column. No, sorry, second cell in the first row. Okay, that's the cell in row 1 column 2. That will be now 0 1. Okay, so and we can continue like that until we have populated all the cells in the first row. Then we can come to the second row where we are going to say now ARR, and then the first brackets will have now 1, the second one will have 0. That will be now row 2 column 1. Okay, and we continue like that until we have populated all the cells in our array. So basically that's how we do it. We have an example here where we are using a multi-dimensional array. All right, so we indicate, of course, we declare the array, we indicate the data type int, then followed by empty square brackets, followed by the name of an array. After that we say equal to new int 10 20. That means we still have 10 rows, 20 columns. Okay, and then we do exactly like we have done up there. All right, so basically we can store values in an array and access the value from that array. We can retrieve values in that array, and here we have an example of how we can retrieve the values in an array. So of course, like we did in our previous lecture, for an array like this, since we are storing many values in a single array, to be indicating the coordinates like we have done up here, to be saying ARR, and then square brackets that contain 0 0, and then you put the value 0 1, put the value 0 2, you put the value, then you come until you end you end that particular row, then you come to the second row. It's going to be a lengthy program, and it's not optimal. So the optimal way to do it is to use loops. Okay, like in this case we have a for loop. Okay, where we say for int I starting from 0 and the int rather I is less than 2 I plus plus, then we do that. Now we have to use a nested for loop. Okay, because we have two dimensional array, so we are going to use a nested for loop. That is, we have a for loop inside another for loop. So we have the outer for loop, then we have the inner for loop. Then we now indicate now system dot out dot println. So we are printing whatever is stored inside the array, and we print out that. So we are basically using a nested for loop, so that we have a loop that prints out the values of a particular row, first row. Then after that we increase the value for the rows, so that we go to the next row, and then we go through the inner for loop again, printing the values of that particular second row up to the end, and so forth and so on. So basically that's how we do it. So by Friday, when we do the practicals, please be there, be around, so that you see exactly practically what we are talking about. This is a nested for loop, how to repeat a particular loop inside another loop, and after we are done, we increase the other in the what now counter now for the rows going to the next row. Then we repeat the other inner for loop until we have printed out the values of that particular row. So but otherwise, what we need to understand is that a two-dimensional array is one that has two rows and it can have any number of columns, 2 rows and any number of columns. We can, and the declaration is similar to the single dimensional array, except that the square brackets, now we have 2 instead of just 1 set of square brackets. So, and the first one is always the row, the last one is always the column number. Right, otherwise that is that for today. Thank you very much. We see Friday during our practical lesson. Stay well.